What if tigers were introduced into North America? What if the world's most powerful cat woke up one morning in the middle of a Canadian forest? What if, instead of roaming the jungles of India or the frozen taiga of Russia, a tiger found itself staring across a Montana valley at a herd of elk? Would it survive? Would it thrive? Would it completely take over? Or would North America's existing predators shut it down before it even got started? These are questions that sound like something out of a movie pitch, but wildlife biologists actually think about them. And the answers are more interesting and more complicated than you might expect. Here's the thing: North America does not have tigers. It never has, at least not in the last several million years. But the continent is home to some of the toughest, most well-adapted predators on the planet: grizzly bears, grey wolves, and mountain lions. These animals have spent thousands of years learning how to survive here. So what happens when you drop a creature that has never seen a grizzly bear into the same forest as one? The tiger, nature's most complete predator. The tiger is the largest living cat on Earth. Full stop, no debate. A male Amur tiger, the subspecies that lives in the Russian Far East, can weigh up to 660 pounds, 300 kilograms, and measure up to 10 feet, 3 meters, from nose to tail. That is bigger than a male lion, bigger than a jaguar, and significantly bigger than a mountain lion. If you lined up all the big cats in the world and asked which one would you least like to run into in a dark forest, the answer is clear. Here is what makes the tiger particularly impressive from a biological standpoint. It is adaptable in a way that most large predators are not. According to Britannica, tigers have managed to thrive in environments ranging from the Siberian taiga, where temperatures drop as low as -40 degrees Celsius, all the way to the mangrove swamps of the Sundarbans in Bangladesh and India, where summer heat exceeds 40 degrees Celsius. Dry grasslands, rainforests, mixed forests, mountain regions. Tigers have lived in all of them at some point. That adaptability is going to be very important when we get to the North America question. Tigers are ambush predators. They do not chase prey across open plains like wolves do. Instead, they use dense vegetation, patience, and an almost supernatural level of stealth to get close to a target before launching a short, explosive burst of speed. They prefer to hunt at night, using their excellent vision and hearing to locate prey in low light. Once they get within range, typically from behind or the side, they go for the throat or the back of the neck, using their jaw strength to either suffocate the animal or break its spine instantly. Their prey list is long. In Asia, tigers primarily hunt large ungulates, sambar deer, water buffalo, wild boar, and gaur. But they are opportunists. The Smithsonian's National Zoo notes that tigers have been documented hunting monkeys, sloth bears, leopards, and even crocodiles. They are strong enough to drag the carcass of a fully grown buffalo, and they can consume up to 110 pounds of meat in a single sitting. After a big kill, they hide the carcass in dense vegetation and return to it for several days, essentially keeping a stocked refrigerator in the jungle. North America, already a very dangerous neighborhood. Before we bring in the guest, let us talk about the house. North America is not exactly a gentle, predator-free paradise. It is home to some of the most formidable wildlife on the planet, and the relationships between predators here are complex, long established, and finely tuned over thousands of years. The continent's apex predators form a kind of unofficial club. The grizzly bear is the heaviest land predator in North America, with large males weighing over 800 pounds, 362 kilograms. The grey wolf is one of the most efficient pack hunters on Earth, capable of taking down prey many times its own size through coordinated group strategy. The mountain lion, also known as the cougar or puma, is one of the most densely distributed land mammals in the Western Hemisphere, ranging from Canada all the way down to South America. Together, these three predators dominate North America's forests, mountains, and grasslands. They are not always friendly neighbors. As the International Wolf Center explains, wolves and grizzly bears compete regularly over food, with bears often walking up to wolf kills and stealing them outright. Mountain lions tend to avoid wolves and bears where possible, relying on their agility and preference for rugged terrain to stay out of trouble. The result is a dynamic, sometimes tense ecosystem where each predator has carved out its own niche, but where conflicts between them are common. Now, here is what a tiger would find if it landed in, say, the forests of British Columbia or the Rocky Mountain corridor of Montana. An almost absurdly well-stocked buffet of prey animals. North America is home to around 30 million white-tailed deer. There are approximately 1 million elk spread across Canada and the western United States. Moose number around 1 million as well, concentrated in Canada, Alaska, and New England. Bison, once nearly wiped out, have been recovering in protected areas. Wild boar, an invasive species in their own right, have spread across much of the southern United States in massive numbers. There is no shortage of prey. The forests themselves would feel oddly familiar to a tiger from the Russian Far East. Canada's boreal forest, a vast stretch of coniferous woodland that covers much of the country, looks remarkably similar to the taiga habitat of the Amur tiger's home range in Siberia. The temperatures get cold, the forest is dense, there is access to rivers and lakes, and large ungulates like moose and elk move through it in significant numbers. For an Amur tiger, arriving in northern Canada would not be like landing on the moon. It would be more like moving from one apartment to a very similar one in a different city. The southern and eastern United States would be a different story. The mixed forests of the Appalachians, the vast woodlands of the southeast, and the swampy lowlands of Florida and Louisiana would offer plenty of deer and wild boar as prey. The climate would generally be warmer and wetter than what an Amur tiger is used to, but well within the range that Bengal or Indo-Chinese tigers handle every day. Tigers are, as we have established, extremely adaptable. Would a tiger actually survive here? Let us say a tiger, a healthy wild-born Amur tiger from Russia, somehow ended up in the boreal forests of northern Canada. No fanfare, no GPS collar, no wildlife biologist watching. Just one tiger in an unfamiliar forest, doing what tigers do. The first few weeks would be the critical test. The tiger would need to find food, and find it quickly. An adult tiger needs to eat around 12 to 15 pounds, 5 to 7 kilograms of meat per day on average, though it can go longer without eating if it makes a big kill. The good news for our hypothetical tiger, the prey is there. Moose and elk are abundant in boreal Canada, and they are similar in size and behavior to the prey tigers hunt in Siberia. Wild boar, which tigers hunt regularly in Asia, have also spread across North America and are present in large numbers in many regions. The tiger's hunting style, ambush from dense vegetation, is perfectly suited to the forested environments of northern North America. Unlike open grasslands, where a tiger's stripes would not offer great camouflage, the broken light and shadow of a forest is exactly what those stripes evolved for. The bigger challenge would be competition. A tiger arriving in North America would not be moving into a predator-free vacuum. It would be stepping into territories already controlled by grizzly bears, wolves, and mountain lions. A tiger and a grizzly bear are roughly matched in terms of raw size and strength. An adult male grizzly can weigh 800 pounds or more. A large Amur tiger tops out around 660. The grizzly has the weight advantage, but is generally not as fast or as agile. In direct one-on-one encounters, the outcome would be genuinely unpredictable. But here is the important thing. In the real world, large predators very rarely fight to the death. They size each other up, one backs down, and they go their separate ways. Grizzly bears and mountain lions coexist in the American Rockies right now. The likely outcome of a tiger-grizzly encounter is a standoff rather than a deathmatch. Wolves are a different kind of challenge. A single wolf is no match for a tiger. The tiger is simply too large and powerful. But wolves hunt in packs, and a pack of wolves is one of the most effective predatory forces in nature. In Yellowstone National Park, wolves have been documented harassing mountain lions and driving them off kills. A pack of 8 or 10 wolves could make life very difficult for a solitary tiger. The tiger might lose kills to them, might be constantly harassed, and might need to work harder to defend its territory than it would in Asia. Mountain lions would likely give way. A mountain lion weighs between 120 and 200 pounds, 54 to 90 kilograms for a large male, roughly a third the size of an adult tiger. In Asia, tigers regularly kill and occasionally eat leopards, which are similarly sized. A mountain lion would almost certainly avoid direct confrontation with a tiger, ceding territory and retreating to areas the tiger was not using. So in terms of the purely biological question, could a tiger survive in North America? The answer appears to be yes, particularly in the boreal forests of Canada and the heavily forested mountain regions of the western United States. It would face real competition from wolves and grizzly bears, but it has dealt with comparable challenges in Russia and come out fine. The prey is there, the habitat is suitable, the temperatures are manageable, at least for an Amur tiger. Biologically speaking, a tiger in northern North America is not as far-fetched as it sounds. What would happen to the ecosystem? Now let us think bigger. Not just one tiger, but a breeding population. Enough tigers to actually establish themselves in North America. What happens then? The introduction of a new apex predator into an established ecosystem does not just affect the prey animals. It reshapes the entire food chain from top to bottom in a process ecologists call a trophic cascade. The best documented example of this in North America is the reintroduction of grey wolves into Yellowstone National Park in 1995. Before the wolves returned, elk populations had swelled, overgrazing stream banks and riversides to the point where the vegetation was collapsing. When the wolves came back, elk started moving more, stopped lingering in open valleys, and the plants recovered. Willows and aspens grew back. Beavers returned. Songbirds returned. The rivers literally changed their paths because of restored bank vegetation. All of that from one predator coming back. Now imagine introducing a tiger, an animal that, in the words of Britannica, plays a major role in controlling not only its prey populations, but also those of other predators like leopards and wild dogs. A tiger does not just eat deer, it shifts the behavior of every animal in its territory. Deer stop grazing in open clearings and move deeper into forest cover. Wolves spend less time in certain areas. Mountain lions reroute their territories. The whole system begins to reorganize around the new presence. The deer population would almost certainly feel the impact first. North America currently has a serious overabundance of white-tailed deer in many regions. Deer overpopulation leads to overbrowsing, where vegetation is stripped faster than it can recover. Mountain lions already kill roughly 50 mule deer per individual per year, according to wildlife researchers. A tiger, being significantly larger and hunting larger prey, would add a meaningful check on ungulate populations. Not catastrophically, but enough to shift the balance. Wild boar populations in North America could also be significantly affected. Wild boar are considered one of the continent's worst invasive species, causing billions of dollars in agricultural damage annually and spreading disease. Tigers hunt wild boar in Asia regularly and with great success. A population of tigers in the southeastern United States, where boar populations are highest, would likely suppress boar numbers in their territory quite effectively. This would actually be a net positive for farmers and ecosystems alike. The relationship between tigers and other predators would be more complicated. Research from the Rocky Mountain region shows that when large predators return to an ecosystem, the effects ripple outward in ways that are not always easy to predict. One thing is almost certain: mountain lions would be pushed around. The cougar, while an impressive predator, simply cannot compete with a tiger for dominance in overlapping territory. The human factor, the real deal breaker. Here is where the thought experiment gets uncomfortable, because even if tigers could biologically survive in North America, and even if the ecosystem could theoretically accommodate them, there is one apex predator that changes everything: us. Think about what happened when wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995. This was a small group, 66 wolves, reintroduced into a massive national park under federal protection, with decades of scientific planning behind it. The public reaction was still deeply divided. Ranchers were furious. Hunters were concerned. Lawsuits flew. 20 years later, the debate over wolves in the American West remains one of the most contentious wildlife issues in the country. And wolves are a native species that belongs here. Now imagine tigers. Not 66 wolves in a national park, but a breeding population of the world's biggest cat, roaming the same forests where people hike, camp, hunt, and run cattle ranches. The reaction would be something else entirely. North America does not have a cultural relationship with tigers the way South and Southeast Asia does. In India, Bangladesh, and Russia, tigers have coexisted with humans uneasily, often tragically, for thousands of years. Local communities have developed traditions, rituals, and a complex mix of reverence and fear around the animal. In North America, there is none of that context. A tiger, being non-native and orders of magnitude more fearsome in the public imagination than a wolf, would face a level of human persecution that would almost certainly prevent any stable wild population from establishing itself. So what would actually happen? Let us bring it all together. If tigers, specifically Amur tigers, were deliberately introduced into the boreal forests of northern Canada or the mountain forests of the American Northwest, here is what the evidence suggests would likely unfold. In the short term, a small founding population would probably survive. The habitat is suitable, the prey is abundant, and the tiger's adaptability would serve them well in a familiar-feeling forest environment. They would compete with wolves and bears, sometimes winning and sometimes yielding, but they would find their footing. Mountain lions would likely retreat from areas where tigers established themselves. In the medium term, the ecological effects would begin to show. Ungulate behavior would shift as deer and elk learn to fear a new kind of predator. Wild boar populations in areas with tigers could decline. The overall prey community would reorganize around the presence of a new top predator. Whether this would produce a clean trophic cascade or a more unpredictable ecological shuffle is genuinely hard to say, and honest ecologists would tell you the same. In the long term, the human factor would dominate everything. Tigers would encounter farms, roads, hunters, and suburban development. Conflicts would happen. People would be frightened. Political pressure would mount. The realistic long-term outcome in today's North America is not a thriving wild tiger population. It is a managed one, restricted to protected areas, monitored by GPS, and perpetually caught between conservation goals and public opposition. North America's forests are not quite ready for tigers, but they are still full of wolves, bears, and mountain lions that face their own battles for survival in a changing landscape. And honestly, those animals deserve more attention than we give them. They are doing the tiger's job right here, and they have been doing it for thousands of years. So maybe the real question is not what would happen if tigers came here, but what would happen if we actually let the predators we already have do their jobs without constantly getting in their way? That is a question worth sitting with. What if lions were introduced into the Amazon rainforest? The Amazon is not only the world's largest rainforest, it's also home to a plethora of animals. 3,000 species of fish, 1,300 species of birds, and over 420 species of mammals. So, what if we threw another mammal into the mix? What if lions were introduced into the Amazon rainforest? Lions are not native to this area, so if they were planted into it, how would they handle it? Would they thrive, or would they wither away? Lions' habitats. Lions don't live in the Amazon. They don't even live on the continent of South America, where the Amazon is located. Let's explore what a lion's habitat currently looks like, because it has some similarities to the Amazon, but also some vast differences. The biggest similarity between the majority of lions' habitats and the Amazon is the lines of latitude. The Amazon is mainly situated in Brazil, and the rest of it spans across other South American countries like Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and more. The Amazon is right on the equator. It reaches about 5 degrees north of the equator and 15 degrees south of the equator. Now, let's look at where lions live. There is a small Indian lion subspecies that lives in the Gir forest of northwestern India. Though once upon a time, lions used to live in many parts of Asia, Europe, and Africa, they now mainly reside only in Africa. Lions mostly range from the southern parts of the Sahara Desert like Sudan and Chad, and all the way down to the northernmost parts of South Africa. A range that is about 15 degrees north of the equator and 30 degrees south of the equator. As you can see, those lines of latitude are quite similar. Lions are no stranger to heat, but when you look at the specific climate they are used to, they don't live right in the desert, nor do they live in rainforests. They do have a wide range of habitats in Africa, but they span from open plains to thick brush to dry thorn forest. The climate in the Amazon is far different from that of what lions are used to, but at least there's plenty of places for cover. So what else do we need to know about the lion before we ship them over to the Amazon rainforest? Details of a lion. It's great that we know about where lions typically live, but we need to know more about them before we go moving them all over the world. Female lions will be 7 to 8 feet long and can weigh up to 350 pounds. Male lions will be 9 to 10 feet long and weigh up to 500 pounds. Huge cats with broad heads, strong legs, and they are just powerfully built all over. The lion is actually one of the more muscular animals in the world. Impressive sizes, right? After all, lions are the second largest cat in the world, only paling in comparison to the tiger. And for these reasons, this is why the lion is an apex predator. It is unmatched in its habitat. Yes, there are other predators such as hyenas, but the lion is the biggest and strongest predator in all of the continent of Africa. So what does the apex predator of Africa eat? Lions eat primarily large animals that weigh between 100 to 1,000 pounds. Yes, even animals that are larger than them. Their favorites are zebras, gazelles, and wildebeests. If they're having trouble finding animals of larger sizes, they'll prey on smaller animals like rodents and reptiles. If they can't get the kills themselves, but say a hyena or a leopard does, lions have been known to steal the kill from them. That's the advantage of being an apex predator. Lions will hunt alone, but also in prides. If they hunt in their pride, usually the lionesses will do the work. A lion's strategy is to use its golden tan coloring to camouflage with the surrounding plants and landscape. They stay low, hidden, stalking their prey and nearing closer and closer. Lions have amazing short burst speed and power. However, the prey they seek out tend to have more endurance and better long-distance speed. So lions like to get close to their prey and then pounce when the time is right. Okay, we know a good deal about this apex predator in its own place, but will it be able to adapt when we relocate it? The plunge into the Amazon. We mentioned the Amazon before occupies much of South America, between 5 degrees north of the equator and 15 degrees south of the equator, roughly. But because it is a rainforest, it is humid and quite warm. Lions are used to the heat, but typically they deal with dry heat. The Amazon is usually around 78 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius in the rainy season, along with relative humidity being about 88%. And in the dry season, it's on average 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, along with a relative humidity of about 77%. If we compare that to, say, the grasslands of Africa that have many lions, that's far more humid. The relative humidity of the grasslands in Africa will often stay right around 70%, but the temperature of those grasslands that are often occupied by lions will usually range between 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. The heat shouldn't be much of a problem for the lions, they're used to that, but the humidity is another factor. Lions would have to adjust to a much more humid climate. Just because they don't currently live in tropical rainforests doesn't mean they couldn't. It appears lions don't quite prefer that climate, as there are tropical rainforests in Africa, but you won't find lions there. But if forced into it, could they adapt? Lions do already adapt to different environments throughout Africa, so if they were placed in the Amazon, they may be able to adjust over time, but they'd have to change so much. They'd probably have to conserve more energy, what with the slightly added heat and the added humidity. However, lions have always been good at finding shade in Africa when needed, and the rainforest provides much shade from direct sunlight. That could be a benefit. Lions will sometimes go a day or two without water, only getting water from their food, but in the rainforest they likely wouldn't have to go as long. Water would be more plentiful for them. This could be an advantage. More hydrated, more energy. However, lions love to use the color of their hair to blend in with their surroundings when sneaking up on prey. Much of the Amazon rainforest has lush greens and other vibrant colors. The lion may stick out in many situations. They'd have to become even stealthier, a trait they already possess. But hunting for prey would become much more difficult. Speaking of prey, what kind of prey would they have in the Amazon? And who else would they be competing with over that prey? Wildlife of the Amazon. For starters, lions are not going to want to go to the Amazon if there isn't food for them to eat. Well, they don't have the options of zebras or wildebeests or anything like that. But there are capybaras, the world's largest rodent. Clocking in at about 150 pounds, that could make a decent snack for the lion. How about wild boars, which generally weigh around 200 pounds? That could be a good meal for the lion. And then probably the animal that the lion would most want to make a meal out of would be the lowland tapir. They're usually between 330 to 660 pounds. That's a great meal for the lion, and all of these animals would likely be decent targets for the lion. Let's not forget, in tough times lions may resort to eating smaller rodents and reptiles. And we know the Amazon has plenty of reptiles, especially snakes. But are we sure the snakes are going to be prey, or might they be predators? Well, there is the green anaconda, which can get up to 30 feet long and 550 pounds. Likely the lion won't be trying to make a meal of that predator. It would be best to avoid it. And there are some other apex predators in the Amazon that the lion would need to keep its head on a swivel for. In the water, there are 8-foot-long electric eels and bull sharks that can weigh between 200 to 300 pounds. So, there's more water available for the lion in the Amazon, but the water isn't perfectly safe. It's ruled by plenty of vicious creatures, and transitioning between the land and water is the black caiman. 16 to 20 feet long and about 1,000 pounds. We know lions sometimes take down prey that is 1,000 pounds, but nothing like a black caiman. A lion would likely not want to tangle with a black caiman. That fight could go either way. And on the land, the other big predator of the Amazon is the jaguar. Ah, a fellow cat. A smaller cat. Yes, the jaguar is the world's third largest cat. The lion is the second largest. So if another big cat exists in the Amazon, so could the lion. And just like the lion does with other predators back home in Africa, he could steal their kills like he does with the hyenas, but he could also just exert his dominance over them. Lions rule the lands of Africa. If dropped into the Amazon, theoretically, they could rule the lands there too. They'd be smart to steer clear of the water if it wasn't for a quick drink. But lions would also need a heavy transition period to acclimate. The humidity would be a big factor. It's not even a certainty they'd fully adjust, but if they did, they'd still have to adapt their hunting technique, what with their coloring not blending in with their surroundings as well anymore. It would be a large adjustment period for a lion in the Amazon, but we've seen lions thrive where they currently are. Let's not put anything past them. The polar bear is the ruler of the Arctic ice and one of the largest predators on land. It's powerful, intelligent, and built to survive in one of the harshest places on Earth. But what if we took this Arctic giant and dropped it on the other side of the world? What if polar bears were introduced to Antarctica? Could they survive there? Would they thrive? Or would they struggle and maybe even disappear into the endless ice? At first, it might sound like a clever rescue plan, send polar bears to a place full of ice and snow. But would it really work, or would it create a whole new disaster? Let's explore this step by step and find out the answers. Today's topic was chosen from Erdan Shabani's comment. As I said, your idea could be the topic for our next videos, so the comment with the most likes will be the topic for a video next week. Anything about wildlife, prehistoric or modern, anything goes. We'll keep doing this for future videos too. Polar bear habitats. Today, polar bears live throughout the Arctic Circle, in northern Canada, Alaska, Greenland, Russia, and Norway. They spend most of their lives on the frozen sea, wandering vast areas of sea ice. This floating ice is their hunting ground. Under the ice is the Arctic Ocean, and polar bears rely on it for food. They wait by holes or cracks in the ice, hoping to ambush seals that swim below and surface to breathe. In fact, polar bears are considered marine mammals because of how tied they are to the ocean, much like whales or seals. Their Latin name, Ursus maritimus, even means bear of the sea. This habitat is cold and inhospitable to us, but for polar bears it provides everything they need. On this ice, they can catch the fat, rich prey they require. Seals, especially ringed seals, are the main item on the menu. Polar bears need a lot of fat to survive in the cold, and seal blubber is the perfect high-calorie meal. Without the sea ice, however, they have almost no way to catch those seals. They can't outswim a seal in open water, and seals rarely come onto land. The loss of sea ice is the biggest threat to polar bears' survival, and it's why some people have wondered, could we give them a new home on the southern ice of Antarctica? Polar bear background. To understand our hypothetical, let's look at what polar bears are capable of. Adult males typically weigh between 660 to 1,500 pounds, 300 and 700 kilograms, and exceptionally big ones can approach 1,700 pounds, 800 kilograms. When standing on their hind legs, a large male can reach 10 to 11.5 feet, 3 to 3.5 meters tall. These bears are strong and fearless hunters. They have huge paws, 11 inches, 30 centimeters across, that act like snowshoes on ice and paddles in water. Polar bears are excellent swimmers. One bear was recorded swimming for 9 days straight, covering around 400 miles, 700 kilometers, to reach distant ice flow. Polar bears don't just survive in the Arctic, they dominate it. They can eat an astonishing amount in one sitting. A single polar bear can devour 45 kilograms of seal blubber in one meal. That meal alone contains a huge number of calories, which the bear uses to build up fat reserves for energy and insulation. They have thick fur and a layer of fat up to 10 centimeters thick under their skin to keep them warm. Perhaps one of the polar bear's greatest tools is its nose. They have an incredible sense of smell. A polar bear can detect prey from almost a kilometer away, or even sniff out a seal hiding under a meter of snow. But what would happen if we suddenly placed this apex Arctic hunter into a very different icy environment, the opposite pole of the planet? Antarctica. At a glance, Antarctica might look a lot like the Arctic. It's covered in snow and ice. It's bitterly cold, with fierce winds and glaciers stretching to the horizon. But Antarctica is a very different world from the Arctic. For one thing, the Arctic is an ocean surrounded by continents, while Antarctica is a continent surrounded by ocean. In the Arctic, sea ice is mostly floating on water. In Antarctica, the ice is mostly attached to a giant landmass. Around the edges of Antarctica, especially in winter, the ocean does freeze and create sea ice, but it's mostly along the coasts. The climate is also even more extreme. The Antarctic coast can be somewhat milder in summer, around -10 degrees Celsius on average, but the interior is the coldest place on Earth. In winter, some parts of Antarctica regularly reach temperatures below -60 degrees Celsius. Even a polar bear, with all its insulation, would find the deep Arctic winter rough if it wandered far inland. In the Arctic, polar bears typically live in temperatures between about -30 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius in winter, and somewhat warmer in summer. Antarctica also has brutal winds that whip across the ice. Another key difference is access to the ocean. Remember, polar bears need sea ice and open water to hunt for seals. In Antarctica, if a bear wandered across the central ice sheet, there would be nothing underneath but rock. The seals and penguins are mostly found at the edges of the continent, near the water or on islands. The Antarctic ecosystem has plenty of life. Penguins, several species of seals, seabirds, and rich ocean waters full of fish and krill. But almost all of that life is concentrated along the coasts and the surrounding Southern Ocean. The vast interior of Antarctica has no penguins, no seals, no bears. It's just too cold and empty. So if we introduced polar bears to Antarctica, we'd likely put them near the coasts where the animals are. Let's imagine we do that. What happens next? What if polar bears were introduced to Antarctica? Let's set the scene. A small group of polar bears is somehow transported to an Arctic shoreline. They step out onto the unfamiliar southern ice. What do they find? In the beginning, they might feel like they've hit the jackpot. Along the Antarctic coast, especially in spring and summer, there are colonies of penguins. Unlike the Arctic, where seals are wary and often hard to catch, these Antarctic creatures have never seen a land predator like a bear. Penguins and most Antarctic seals have no instinct to fear a large creature approaching on the ice. Nothing like a polar bear exists in their world. This would be a huge advantage for the bears, at least at first. The penguins, which normally only have to worry about leopard seals or orcas in the water, would be completely defenseless on land. To the bear, Antarctica at first would seem like paradise. Food everywhere, no competition, and no danger. To the penguins, it would be a catastrophe. One bear could cause massive chaos in a penguin rookery. The same goes for seals resting on the ice. A seal lounging on an Antarctic beach might barely react as a polar bear comes closer. Sadly for the seal, it might only react when it's too late. However, this easy life wouldn't last long. Polar bears are big animals with big appetites. A full stomach from one day's hunting won't last. They'll be hungry again in a few days. Penguins, unlike seals, are relatively small. An emperor penguin weighs around 44 to 66 pounds, 20 to 30 kilograms. So while penguins are easy to catch, the bear would have to catch an awful lot of them to stay nourished. The bears would quickly start reducing the penguin and seal populations in the areas they roam. Within months, it's very possible that entire rookeries of penguins near the bears' territory would be decimated. Then the polar bears would face a new problem: scarcity of food. The bears would have to travel farther and farther to find the next penguin colony or the next group of seals. In Antarctica, breeding colonies of penguins can be tens or even hundreds of kilometers apart along the coast. Polar bears are used to roaming long distances, so they would try to wander to the next hunting spot. But the journey might be very energy intensive. They could end up burning more calories walking, swimming, and searching than they get from the smaller prey they find. Unlike the flexible sea ice of the Arctic, Antarctica's coastline isn't a continuous platform of ice in summer. There will be stretches of land or sea the bears have to traverse to go from one area to another. The sea ice around Antarctica in winter could allow bears to travel along the coast, but if they head inland, they'll find nothing. Meanwhile, the impact on the Antarctic ecosystem would be severe. Penguins play a key role in the food web. They eat fish and krill, and are preyed upon at sea by seals and orcas. If polar bears drastically reduce penguin numbers, it could cause unexpected ripple effects. Perhaps fish populations would grow because fewer penguins eat them, or other predators like leopard seals might turn to different prey if bears steal their meals. The Antarctic ecosystem evolved over millions of years without a large land predator. Introducing polar bears would throw that natural balance out of sync. After an initial period of successful hunting, the polar bears would begin to struggle. With local penguin colonies collapsed and the slow Antarctic seals now much more alert or depleted, the bears would start going hungry. Remember, a polar bear needs a lot of food to keep going. If it can't get enough fat, it loses weight quickly. A starving polar bear in Antarctica would be a sad sight, surrounded by ice, but with an empty stomach. The easy prey phase would be over, and now the bears would be in trouble. They might roam into human-inhabited research stations scavenging for food, or they might try to hunt other animals like seabirds. But there are very few alternatives. Antarctica has no deer or land mammals to fall back on, only marine animals. Unlike some other bears, polar bears cannot just switch to eating plants or insects to get by. Considering all these factors, could polar bears adapt in the long run if they remained in Antarctica? It's highly unlikely. Polar bears evolved for the Arctic environment over many thousands of years. Their hunting tactics, breeding habits, and seasonal rhythms all depend on the Arctic sea ice and the prey that live there. Antarctica might have a similar climate on the surface, but the ecosystem is completely different. The polar bears would face challenges they aren't equipped for. Different prey types, longer fasting periods, and fiercer cold in some areas. Evolution doesn't happen overnight. In contrast, animals like brown bears or wolves are more generalist and can live in various habitats. Polar bears are specialists. They are extremely good at one lifestyle, but that means they're not flexible to do something entirely different. So, unlike, say, a tiger that can live in different forests or a dog that can eat many foods, the polar bear can't just become a penguin eater in a sustainable way. Scientists and conservationists agree that introducing polar bears to Antarctica would be a terrible idea. It's not a real solution to the problem of polar bear decline. It's more like trading one problem for many new ones. In fact, there are also legal and ethical barriers. Antarctica is protected by international treaties that, among other things, prohibit introducing non-native species to the continent. The world has learned hard lessons from invasive species in other places, and Antarctica is one of the last relatively untouched ecosystems. So, could polar bears survive in Antarctica? For a short while, a few might, yes. They might even multiply if given enough initial food. But would they thrive long term? Almost certainly not. They would find a land of abundance turn into a land of scarcity once they've eaten through the native prey. The environment wasn't built for them, and they weren't built for it. What if tigers were introduced into the African savannah? 7 big cats spread all over the world, dominating their habitats and able to all exist because they aren't all living in the same region. However, we're about to shake all of that up. We're going to be taking species of big cats and moving them into habitats they don't exist in, introducing them to the other big cat species, and watching how things will unfold. Will it work out all right, or will there be absolute chaos? The big move we're making today is going to span thousands of miles, and we'll answer the question, what if tigers were introduced into the African savannah? African savannah. Let's first look at the eventual destination of the tigers that we will be moving, the African savannah. When many people think of the African savannah, they think of the wildlife, they think of big cats. Yes, there are many big cats that live here, but tigers are not one of those big cats. For starters, we mentioned that there are 7 types of big cats in the world. There's dozens of feline species, but only 7 that qualify as big cats. They are lions, jaguars, leopards, snow leopards, cheetahs, cougars, and of course tigers. Many of these big cats have been spread out across the globe, making their existence easier, not having to contend with others too much. For instance, the Americas have jaguars and cougars, Asia has tigers, snow leopards and leopards, and then Africa also has leopards, along with lions and cheetahs. This is a nice balance, a fair distribution of these powerful predators known as big cats. But the African savannah is one area that is already replete with predators, several of them being big cats. Any more big cats getting introduced here, and who knows what will happen. In addition to the lions, cheetahs, and leopards, other predators in the African savannah include hyenas, jackals, African wild dogs, and several types of birds of prey, like eagles and falcons. With the birds, there is always a pecking order, but as you can see, looking at some of these other predators, the African savannah has a pecking order with the rest of the predators too. You have jackals. Though vicious, they're usually between 20 and 30 pounds. African wild dogs range between 40 and 80 pounds. Leopards, cheetahs, and hyenas all range roughly between 50 and 150 pounds. Of course, there are always larger specimens of these species, but none of them will ever exceed 250 pounds. And then there is the lion, not king of the jungle, king of the savannah. Lions will typically be between 6 and 8 feet long and weigh between 350 and 500 pounds. It's quite clear who gets first dibs on meals in the African savannah. When these predators are looking for food, they'll turn to animals like wildebeest, zebras, buffalo, impalas, gazelles, and others. There are other animals which are not predators, but their massive size makes it fairly easy for them to not become prey, like rhinos, hippos, giraffes, and elephants, although that's not to say they're never hunted. It happens. Now, when we're talking about the African savannah, it does cover a wide range of land on the continent of Africa. Because the savannas tend to be around 8 to 20 degrees away from the equator, they stay hot to warm all year round. They tend to not get any colder than 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the coldest months and at night, but typically the temperatures stay between 65 degrees and 85 degrees. African savannas have wet seasons, but the dry seasons last much longer. These savannas can go for months without rain, causing there to be fewer trees than other habitats, much plant life that can thrive without water, and in many cases, extreme drought. So that is where we're going to move the tigers to. But where are they currently? Habitat of a tiger. Tigers live in many places, but none of those places are African savannas, nor are they anywhere in Africa. No, tigers are strictly found in Asia, but in many places in Asia. They actually are found in a variety of different habitats, from rainforests to temperate forests, from the constant heat in places near the equator to places far from the equator that experience the change of the 4 seasons. The range of tigers is impressive, one of the largest ranges in terms of any of the big cats. They live as far south as the equator, all the way up to 50 degrees north of the equator, making them highly adaptable. Most other big cats pick a specific habitat and live in a fairly tight temperature range and get used to specific weather. But the tiger will take it all on. Tigers have been found to live in swampy areas and certain plains, but they much prefer forests as they like to blend in with the trees, especially when attempting to sneak up on their prey. They've been found at a variety of altitudes, from nearly sea level to as high as 11,000 feet in certain montane forests. Tigers have their preferences, but they will make it work wherever they have to, whether it be a forest in Russia that experiences winter, spring, summer and fall, or if it is a rainforest in Indonesia with constant warmth and humidity. All about the tiger. So what does a tiger eat, considering it can be found in vastly different habitats? Well, they make do wherever they live, but they'll hunt for animals like wild boar, deer, water buffaloes, and pigs. If there are sheep, goats, and cattle nearby, they'll get those too. They've even been known to eat monkeys, elephant calves, and crocodiles. Their diet needs to be flexible to fit the areas they live in, but they prefer larger animals so that they can have one big meal all at once. That is often the case with large predators like the tiger. They're not always guaranteed a meal, so when they get one, they'd like for it to be a large amount to nourish them for a good deal of time. In fact, they'll often hunt and eat about once a week, and when they do eat, they might eat up to 75 pounds in one sitting. So if we've got a tiger that's taking down deer and water buffaloes and crocodiles and eating 75 pounds in one sitting, then he must be pretty big. Indeed, tigers are the largest of all the big cats in the world. They'll typically be between 8 and 10 feet long and will weigh between 500 to 700 pounds. They are extremely muscular felines, able to jump 18 to 20 feet and run up to 40 miles per hour. These are scary qualities of the already enormous cat if you are a deer or water buffalo in the area. Then again, tigers are ambush predators. They won't be keeping up those speeds of 40 miles per hour for long distances, so that's the only shot that its prey has, to try to outlast the tiger. However, the tiger is smart and knows this. That is why the tiger uses its stripes to camouflage with its surroundings. It sneaks up on the prey, remaining undetected. The tiger gets as close as he possibly can, and then once the moment is right, he strikes. When the tiger pounces, he'll use his 4-inch long retractable claws that are sharp and curved to dig into his prey. Tigers are strong, able to lift twice their body weight. So if their prey thinks they might be able to escape the clutches of a tiger, think again. You'd have to be pretty big to win that battle. And their jaws are extremely powerful, one of the most powerful sets of jaws when it comes to big cats. They have a bite force of around 1050 psi. So imagine you're the prey, and imagine a tiger's jaws coming down with that force, equivalent to the weight of a grand piano coming down on you, all while their 33-inch long teeth sink into you. This is no picnic for you, but this is exactly the kind of picnic that a tiger is looking for. And for these reasons, the tiger is the apex predator wherever he goes. China, Thailand, Russia, doesn't matter. The tiger is the apex predator in all the Asian countries he lives in. But what exactly is going to happen when we pick a few tigers up and drop them in the African savannah? Tiger relocation. We're picking up some tigers from Asia and shipping them off to the African savannah. The tigers are getting dropped down, let's say roughly 10 degrees north of the equator, right in the heart of Africa. It's 80 degrees. Tigers can deal with that. Many of them are used to that. It's dry. Some tigers live in dry climates, others in wet climates. No matter, this is the most adaptable big cat in the world. They'll make it work. There are trees, but many of them are spaced far apart. Not exactly preferable for the tigers. They prefer forests, plenty of tree cover. Now, that's not to say there isn't tree cover and that there aren't places to hide out, but it likely isn't like back home. Tigers are used to a thick tree line and a heavy canopy of trees overhead, and that just is not the case here. This is something the tiger will realize immediately. They're going to have to improve their hunting and stalking game. It's going to be harder to stay hidden and chase down prey. There will be less obstacles and plenty more opportunities for their prey to pick it up to a high speed and outrun the tiger. And every time a tiger doesn't have a successful kill, they've missed an opportunity to eat, they've expended energy, and there's less water around here. A tiger could get really thirsty out here. That could become a concern. But here are all the things that are not concerns for the tiger. There is plenty to eat out here. Just like the buffalo and deer they enjoy back home, there are buffalo here, and there are zebras and wildebeest and gazelles. There are plenty of hoofed animals to choose from. There may not be wild boars or pigs, but there are warthogs. Close enough. And hey, tigers enjoyed going after the occasional elephant calf and crocodile back home. They can do that here too. Then again, when hunting for elephant calves, you must watch out for the defensive elephant parents. And elephants in Africa are far larger than the ones in Asia, so a tiger must tread carefully. Here is another pro to the move. The tiger is still the apex predator. He is bigger than the jackals and the African wild dogs and the cheetahs. He's seen leopards back home and they're here too. They're about the same size. No problem. And then there are the lions, the biggest predators before the tiger showed up. Not an animal to take lightly, but still an animal that is not as big as the tiger. An animal that the tiger is, on average, 2 feet longer than. An animal that the tiger is, on average, 200 pounds heavier than. The lion is a formidable opponent to the tiger, so the tiger will likely avoid battles when possible, but at least he can be confident in his size advantage if a battle were to need to take place. So the tiger can strut confidently along the African savannah, knowing he is the biggest predator here, and he can remain an apex predator. He'll be adapting to the climate and the terrain and the lack of trees, but he won't have to adapt to being the top dog. That will remain the same. However, his competition has probably increased. The lions and the hyenas and the cheetahs and the others, they'll all be competing for food. Then again, that could be a blessing. If a smaller predator gets a kill and a tiger happens upon it, he can scare away the smaller predator and steal some of the food himself. Maybe this won't be so bad for the tiger. He could thrive knowing that other predators could do the heavy lifting for him, allowing him to come in and get a free meal. We know that tigers are extremely adaptable animals, so we can be confident that the tiger will adapt in the African savannah. The tiger will remain confident in his status as apex predator. The hyenas and cheetahs and jackals and African wild dogs already were not apex predators, so another large predator is an inconvenience to them, but a minor one. However, it is the lions that will be most impacted, and they'll be very upset. They'll have lost their status as apex predator, their status of king of the savannah. It'll be a difficult adjustment period for the lion, as the tiger just stepped in and claimed the throne to the African savannah. What if tigers were introduced into the Amazonian rainforest? There are 40 species of wild cats. 7 are classified as big cats. You know which ones we mean. Leopards, jaguars, lions. They're fierce hunters. They're apex predators. They are some of the largest land predators on the planet. The largest of the big cats is the tiger. The tiger is an unmatched predator in the feline family. It rules the forests in which it inhabits. But what if you took tigers away from their habitat and introduced them to a brand new one, say the Amazonian rainforest? How would tigers adapt, if at all? Could they continue on, or would they die out? Taiga habitats. Currently, tigers can be found in several different kinds of habitats, such as swamps, grasslands, and especially in temperate and tropical forests. They live in these types of habitats in South and Southeast Asia, China, some parts of Korea, and even eastern Russia. This is impressive when you consider the wide range of locations. Some tigers' habitats are as far south as the equator, and some of them can be as far north as 50 degrees north. This is unique for a species of big cat. Compare the tiger to the jaguar and the lion. Jaguars range from southern United States through Central America and South America and as far south as northern Argentina. They basically range from 30 degrees north of the equator to 30 degrees south of the equator. Similarly, lions can be found as far north as the southern parts of the Sahara and as far south as northern South Africa. About 15 degrees north of the equator to 30 degrees south of the equator. Similar ranges, and similar climates that range through those lines of latitude. Not a whole lot of change in the climate when staying that close to the equator, but the habitats of tigers change dramatically when you span from the equator up to 50 degrees north. Tigers are adaptable overall as a species. They can live near the equator and handle constant hot temperatures in the tropical forests with constant rainfall, but they can also withstand the seasonal changes in places like Russia, in temperate forests where there are actually 4 seasons throughout the year. It's rare that an animal could live in a tropical forest with hot temperatures, no true seasons, and more than 80 inches of rainfall a year. Or the same animal could be just fine in a temperate forest that goes through spring, summer, fall, and winter and only gets between 30 to 60 inches of rainfall a year. Usually, a species could thrive in one or the other, not both. But tigers are special. They make it work wherever they are. So, could they handle the Amazon? Tigers' background. But before we pick up all the tigers in Asia, airlift them to South America and plop them down amongst the trees of the Amazon, let's take a look at them in more detail. What's their diet like? Tigers will eat a variety of animals, including wild boar, deer, water buffaloes, and pigs. They've also been known to hunt and eat monkeys. If humans are nearby and have cattle and goats, they seize those opportunities. And they've even been known to eat crocodiles. Tigers hunt at night for their prey. Their stripes allow them to camouflage in a variety of settings. They hide, wait, and use their sight and excellent sense of hearing, and when their target is close enough, they pounce. They usually hunt once a week and eat about 75 pounds of food in one night. Tigers are fast. They can reach speeds of 40 miles per hour and can jump 18 to 20 feet. Not many animals are getting away from a tiger. We mentioned tigers are the world's largest cat, but just how big are they? They can vary in size through the different subspecies, but the largest ones, the ones people most commonly associate with the image of a tiger, like Siberian tigers and Bengal tigers, they can easily reach lengths of 10 feet and can weigh in at 650 pounds. So now that we know more about tigers, let's go plop them into the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon. The Amazon is huge. It covers a roughly 4.2 million square mile area of South America. About 60% of the Amazon is situated in Brazil, and the rest of it stretches across portions of Bolivia, Peru, French Guiana, Suriname, Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador. Because the Amazon falls right on the equator and stretches north of it just a bit, about 5 degrees north, and south of it about 15 degrees south. The Amazon is a tropical rainforest, and we already know tigers live in tropical forests in Asia. This is something the tigers would be able to handle quite well. We know the climate won't affect the tigers much. They can handle the heat and the rainfall. They're very adaptable. But tigers won't have the comforts and usual foods of home back in Asia. They'll have to adjust to South American cuisine, so to speak. What kind of food would the Amazon offer for the tiger? We know that tigers prefer a lot of larger mammals like wild boar, deer, pigs, and water buffaloes. We also know they can adapt to what is offered. In the Amazon, there are capybaras, the world's largest rodent. These can get up to 150 pounds. Wild boars can often be between 170 to 220 pounds, so that might not be all that different. Probably a different taste, but a similar size. That's a possibility for the tigers now lurking in the Amazon. What else? There's also the lowland tapir. This ungulate, which is a relative to the horse and the rhino, will usually weigh between 330 to 660 pounds. Now that's a big meal. Do we think that a tiger could take one down? Well, they take down water buffalo, which usually start at 660 and can hit 1,200 pounds. The tiger should have no problem. There are also a lot of sloths in the Amazon, which tigers could probably make meals of, and those wouldn't be difficult to catch. There are species of deer in and around the Amazon. Perfect. Tigers love deer. There are also monkeys. Perfect. Tigers eat them too. So food shouldn't be an issue. It would be a bit of an adjustment, but there is plenty of sizable and catchable prey found in the Amazon. But our 10-foot, 600-pound tiger isn't just going to waltz right into a rainforest and have no other predators to compete with. What other predators are there in the Amazon? Apex predators of the Amazon. The apex predator of the skies in the Amazon would be the harpy eagle, 3.5 feet in length and 20 pounds. The tiger doesn't have to worry about that. In the water, there's a few other apex predators. There are electric eels there, 8 feet long and 40 pounds. Tigers significantly outweigh them, but they're still big and they have an amazing attack and defense mechanism. Not to mention, the Amazon River also contains bull sharks. They can weigh between 200 and 300 pounds. Weight advantage goes to the tiger, but bull sharks get between 8 and 13 feet long, and they are vicious. Pure muscle. Even though tigers are excellent swimmers and agile in the water, they'd be in the territory of the bull shark. Advantage goes to the bull shark. Tigers would need to learn early on that the water wouldn't be completely safe for them. Getting a drink of water would require a cautious approach. Another apex predator of the waters that also hunts on the land, the black caiman. We know that tigers have hunted and eaten crocodiles, but not often. Also, that's different from hunting a deer. If you don't catch the deer, no problem. If you don't catch the croc might catch you. The black caimans in the Amazon are 16 to 20 feet long and get up to 1,000 pounds. That's a size and a weight advantage for the caiman. We have no doubt that the tiger could hold its own and use its agility to battle the caiman, but it might be best to do its hunting a little farther from the water. Are there any large land predators? Yep. The green anaconda gets up to 30 feet long and weighs 550 pounds. This is another situation where tigers could hold their own, but they'd absolutely need to be cautious. We don't think the anaconda is necessarily looking to eat a tiger, but if threatened, it might have something to say about the new cat in town. In addition to the green anaconda, the other apex predator of the land is the jaguar. Jaguars have thrived in the Amazon. Cunning, intelligent, skilled hunters. They're about 8 feet long, including their tail, and can weigh about 350 pounds. They've ruled much of the Amazon. But jaguars are only the third largest cat on the planet. Yeah, tigers are the largest. So, there isn't much a jaguar can do to hold its own against a larger, heavier tiger. That actually would be a good sign for the tiger, to see a jaguar in the Amazon. Because if a jaguar can live and thrive as an apex predator in the Amazon, then a tiger should be able to do the very same. They already exist in similar climates. Once again, there would be the period of adapting to the new environment, but that shouldn't take very long. Then, tigers would supplant jaguars as the apex feline in the area. The jaguars would be no match for them, having to slide down the totem pole from apex predator to just predator. Tigers would instantly be the apex predators of the land in the Amazon, still being wary of the formidable opponents in the jaguars and anacondas, but knowing that there was no match for them, their power, their size, their agility, they'd rule those lands. And nothing to worry about in the sky, of course. But the water, The tigers would need to be wary around that water. The caimans, the bull sharks, the electric eels. The water would be strictly for drinking, and that's it. Hunting would have to be done inland. So, could tigers adapt to the Amazon rainforest? It looks like they could. It looks like they could thrive. It looks like they'd hardly miss a beat. But it also looks like the Jaguars wouldn't be too happy about losing their crown, so they better hope it never happens. What if grizzly bears were introduced to the African savannah? One of the most dangerous places on Earth is the African savannah. Interestingly, one species of animal that's notably absent is one of the most dangerous animals alive today, the bear. So what would happen if we introduced grizzly bears into the African savannah? Would they thrive? Would they take over? Or is the grizzly bear perceived as such a danger because he doesn't have as much competition in his current habitats? Let's find out if our bear is a big fish in a small pond, or if he's more like a great grizzly white shark. Clicking the like button gives you protection from grizzlies, and hitting that subscribe button will give you updates on the channel. So click both, it's a win-win. The African savannah. Most people heading on vacation search for hotels in the safest neighborhoods, but if you filter to the deadliest areas, you'll find the African savannah near the top of the list. The African savannah stretches across huge swaths of the African continent. It's located primarily between 15 degrees north and 30 degrees south, and between 15 degrees west and 40 degrees west. Countries like Guinea, Sierra Leone, over to Uganda, Kenya, stretching down to Botswana, South Africa, and dozens more. The savannah is a tropical grassland with a prominent rainy season, during which 15 to 20 inches of rain is expected a month. During the dry season, only 4 inches during the entire 7 months. Gazelles and zebras and baboons don't pose much threat, but even some of the non-predatory animals are extremely dangerous. Rhinos, hippos, Cape buffaloes, and elephants. It's scary enough knowing you have to watch out for the animals that are just trying to eat plants. But how about all the animals that would be trying to eat you? The African savannah is replete with ferocious predators. Hyenas, cheetahs, African wild dogs, jackals, leopards, crocodiles, and most famously, lions. There are just so many reasons that these predators make for, quite possibly, the deadliest combination of predators anywhere in the world. African wild dogs and jackals aren't enormous, but they travel in large packs. Hyenas, 190 pounds with a bite force of 1,100 psi that can go through bone. Sometimes they can exist in a small army of over 100 individuals. The Nile crocodile makes the water unsafe, and his bite is worse, 5,000 psi. And we haven't even gotten to the felines yet. There are 7 big cats in the world. You may find yourself in areas of South America where there are 2 different big cats, cougars and jaguars. You may also find yourself in places in Asia that have 2 different big cats, tigers and leopards. But the African savannah is the one place where 3 different big cats coexist. The ferocious 200-pound leopard, the cheetah, 140 pounds, fastest land animal on the planet, and the lion, 6 to 8 feet long, over 500 pounds. Not only that, the only 2 big cats of the 7 that live in a group, cheetahs and the lions. You'd have a hard time finding a place on Earth as lethal as the African savannah. Grizzly bear. So where's the grizzly bear? Definitely not in Africa. No bears live in Africa. The last bear that lived in Africa was the Atlas bear, a subspecies of brown bear in northern Africa, having gone extinct around 1870. Like the Atlas bear, the grizzly bear is also a subspecies of brown bear. The grizzly is only in North America, places like Canada, Alaska, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Grizzly bears are one of the largest subspecies of brown bear. They're known for their size and their power. On average, the males are 8 feet long and 850 pounds. On average, plenty exceed 1,000 pounds. Don't confuse the weight for fat. Grizzlies can run at speeds of 35 miles per hour. When it comes to strength, it's staggering what a grizzly can do. They've been seen ripping apart logs and flipping over heavy rocks. They can lift or carry over 1,100 pounds with ease, and when it comes to the power of their jaws, a 1,160 psi bite force. The bite force being so high is interesting, considering the diet of the grizzly bear. Not a carnivore, the grizzly is an omnivore. On average, their diet is about 75% non-meat, like fruits, nuts, plants, and leaves. When they do eat meat, grizzlies use their keen sense of sight and smell to track down their prey. They're opportunistic and may eat rodents, birds, fish, and occasionally ungulates like deer, elk, and moose. You might see a grizzly hovering over the edge of the river, swiping at the fish. If they go for an animal on land, it's a grizzly scene. They chase down the animal, swiping at it with their forepaw with so much power that it can be enough to break the target's spine. Grizzlies can take down an adult moose, swiping at it, digging into its flesh with its claws, and delivering several bites to the hind area. Once the grizzly can get on top of the animal, they'll finish it with a bite to its shoulder or neck, suffocating it or wringing its neck until the job is done. Adult males live solitary lives except for when it's mating season. That's when a fight can break out, and they usually stand on their hind legs. The heavy swiping of the arms begins, and the two will grapple like a couple of wrestlers, biting and swinging their heads around viciously. Their fighting style is also effective if a predator is nearby. Now, an adult grizzly has virtually no predators, but their cubs will. Cougars, wolves, and black bears prey on grizzly cubs. Luckily, the grizzly is far larger than all of them and can defend themselves and their young with their fighting style. It's good to know the grizzly can hold his own against certain canines and certain felines. However, the African savanna has far different canines and felines and a whole host of other predators. Relocation. We're putting a whole bunch of grizzly bears into the African savanna, and now we'll sit back and watch how things go. First off, people may think it will be too hot for the grizzlies in Africa because grizzlies typically only live in colder environments. While that's true, they also used to live as far south as California and even in parts of Mexico, so our African grizzlies can adjust. They'll need to do a quick environment check. Looks different, smells different, but in a general sense, it's similar enough. There are areas that are more heavily wooded, there are open areas, there's rivers and lakes scattered around. Our grizzlies can make a home here. Next thing our grizzlies have to do, a food check. About 75% of their diet would be fruits and leaves and nuts. Will there be enough? There should be. The grizzly will look around at all the herbivores and see that they're finding plenty of food sources. Not just the gazelles and zebras, but how about those huge horned buffaloes? How about those rotund rhinos? How about those hefty hippos? How about those massive elephants? The grizzlies may be shocked. They're no longer the largest animal in their territory. The 2,000-pound Cape buffalo and the 5,000-pound rhinos and the 8,000-pound hippos and the 13,000-pound elephants all dwarf them. Luckily, none of them eat meat. But if they can get that big off of plants alone, then it shouldn't be a problem for the grizzlies to keep themselves well fed off of plants, as long as they keep their distance. These animals don't eat meat, but they charge, and they're bigger. Maybe a grizzly could hold his own against some smaller rhinos or hippos, but best not to test that theory. The grizzly still wants some meat though. Grizzlies love to fish. The grizzly may like to occasionally visit the rivers here in Africa, but he's never had to worry about anything in the river trying to bite him back. They'll soon catch on to the presence of Nile crocodiles, and they'll realize that the river is not an easy food source like back home. This one requires their defenses to be up. So, how about the land animals? Just like back home, there are small rodents and birds that grizzlies can find. But what if they want something larger? An ungulate like the deer or moose back home? Here they've got similar options. Gazelles, antelope, zebras. It's like eating chicken your whole life and switching to turkey. Similar enough, but it will take some adjusting. And the grizzly will be able to hunt them down just like he used to. The setting is fine, the food is fine. The grizzly is no longer the largest animal here, but everyone who outranks him in size eats strictly plants. Not bad, right? Wait, there's one last important thing to consider here. The grizzly didn't show up and become the only predator. There were already predators here. The grizzlies familiarized themselves with the crocs already, but there are plenty more predators on the land. Those African wild dogs and those jackals, they're smaller than the grey wolves back home, but their pack sizes are larger. The African grizzlies will hold them in the same regard. They'll defend their young from these canines. Hold on, what are those things that look sort of like dogs, but aren't? Hyenas? Those things are big, almost as heavy as the grey wolves back home. But their packs can get enormous. Those guys could be a problem. The grizzlies will need to be on even higher alert. No black bears or any other kind of bears to worry about, but hold on. The grizzly had to worry about a particular feline back home, the cougar. Any felines in the African savannah? Of course, there are leopards who behave similar to cougars, living solitary lives. The danger of leopards coming after grizzly cubs will replace the old danger of cougars. But there are other felines. Sometimes they're in small groups, and they're fast. Cheetahs. Those things are smaller but quicker than anything the grizzly has ever seen. The cheetah might try to take a grizzly cub, but it looks more interested in all the ungulates in the area. Most likely they'll just be competition for food sources. Next, the grizzlies are seeing the largest felines on this continent, the lions, and they're almost never alone. Oftentimes it's 6 to 10 adults together. Though they aren't bigger than the adult grizzly at 1,000 pounds or so, they're still large, 500, maybe 600 pounds each, and they can hit speeds of 50 miles per hour. It's not only a devastating blend of power and speed, making for a near-perfect killing machine, but they always roll with backup. These guys are going to be a problem. If only grizzlies lived in a pack, the pride of lions would be less of an issue. But the reality is that grizzlies live solo. One grizzly versus 6 lions wouldn't be a fair fight. A grizzly could do plenty of damage, but the sheer numbers of these big cats would be overwhelming. The lions may be keen on taking a grizzly cub, and it would be hard to stop them. And as the grizzlies observe these lions from afar, they see just how scary they are. They work together, and they take out animals, sometimes even the occasional Cape buffalo. So, if they can take down those animals, then the grizzly could be a target. The grizzlies know the lions are looking at them with cautious curiosity too, though. They see the grizzlies and they know they are formidable opponents. They all know that the grizzlies could deliver a few swipes and bites and ruin their day, or make it their last day. So a form of mutual respect will be there between the animals, but a contentious kind of hatred will be there too. This trip to Africa is going to make for a lot of adjusting. But with all the adjusting, will the grizzlies make it? Can the bears live in Africa? The grizzlies could get by in this dangerous place, but it will be far from easy. The reality is, grizzlies will no longer be the largest animal in their habitat. They used to be apex predators. Now they're just another predator. The next largest predator in their old home was either the cougar or grey wolf or black bear, meaning the grizzly was 3 to 5 times the size of the next largest predator. Now, having to share a habitat with lions, it's far different. The grizzly is the largest predator, but he isn't even twice the size of number 2. The gap has closed. Before, the only animals that were regularly larger than the grizzly was the moose, outweighing him by a few hundred pounds. The moose was considered possible prey. Now there's a handful of different animals that are larger than the grizzly in the Cape buffalo, the rhino, the hippo, the giraffe, and the elephant. Some of them are 3 times his size, 5 times his size, 10 times his size. The grizzly isn't top dog. Grizzlies are resourceful, dangerous powerhouses, but they've long been in an environment that they can dominate. They were undisputed kings of their North American habitats. In the African savannah, many of them will succumb to the dangers, but they'll put up a fight and defeat many of these enemies, and in large part, the grizzlies will survive. Not all of them, but they could continue to live in the African savannah as just another predator. What if leopard seals were introduced in the Arctic? Imagine a giant spotted sea wolf slicing through icy water where polar bears roam. An Antarctic leopard seal suddenly dropped into the Arctic. What would happen? Could this stealthy finned predator hold its own on someone else's turf? Or would it end up as dinner for a polar bear? Picture this unexpected guest. A wickedly sharp-toothed hunter popping out beneath the Arctic ice, surprising walruses, belugas, narwhals, and even grizzled old polar bears. It sounds like a wild sci-fi plot, but today we ask a serious question. How would the Arctic ecosystem react if we tossed in a new top predator from the south? This isn't just about one animal meeting another. It's a domino effect through the food web. Let's begin. The topic of today's video was given by @SidWalker4194, who has the comment with the most likes, so your idea could be the topic for our next videos. We'll continue the series, and the comment with the most likes on this video will be the topic for one of the next videos. Thanks! Where leopard seals belong. First, let's meet the leopard seal. This isn't a tiger in a seal suit, but it is big and fierce. Leopard seals, Hydrerga leptonyx, live only around Antarctica, circling the frozen continent on the pack ice. They're huge. Males average around 2.8 meters long and 320 kilograms, while females can grow over 3 meters and 370 to 500 kilograms, roughly the size of a compact car with fins. Their long flippers and streamlined bodies make them speedy swimmers. They have giant jaws filled with pointy teeth and a second set of lobed molars for filtering tiny prey. In short, these seals are built for hunting. Leopard seals are solitary, stealthy ambush predators. They lurk under ice ledges or just below the surface, waiting for unsuspecting prey to swim by. They eat almost anything that moves in the Southern Ocean. Their menu includes penguins, fish, squid, krill, and even pups of other seals like crab-eater, weddell, or fur seals. When hunting, they will sneak up on a penguin underwater and thrash it against the ice until it's easy to tear apart. Because they eat such a wide range of creatures, they're true apex predators in Antarctica, except for orcas. Leopard seals are so good at predation that they can drastically change their ecosystem. Who rules the Arctic? Now switch gears to the north. The Arctic is its own frozen kingdom with a very different cast of characters. The polar ice here is the stage for creatures like polar bears, walruses, narwhals, beluga whales, and lots of seals. In fact, many Arctic animals depend on the ice for survival. Polar bears, walruses, and seals all use it as their platform for resting, breeding, and hunting. Lose the ice, and their world changes completely. At the top of this chilly food web on land and ice stands the polar bear. These mighty bears can weigh over 500 kilograms, up to 1,100 pounds, and are perfectly adapted to life on the ice. Polar bears are carnivores, specialized for seals. They spend most of their lives waiting at seal breathing holes or stalking seal dens. Their favorite meal is the ringed seal, but they'll also hunt bearded seals. In fact, polar bears have evolved to prey almost exclusively on ringed and bearded seals. What about whales and seals? Arctic seas are full of seals too. Ringed seals are the smallest and most numerous, making them polar bear snacks. There are also larger seals like bearded, harp, and hooded seals. These seals often haul out on ice floes or rest at breathing holes where a waiting bear or nearby walrus might snatch them. Speaking of walruses, these are the tusked giants of the north. Adult walruses can weigh a ton or more, so only very bold polar bears even try to hunt them. And then there are the whales and dolphins. The Arctic is home to beluga whales and narwhals, which are toothed whales that eat fish and tiny crustaceans. But even larger animals have a chance against them. Killer whales patrol Arctic waters too. Orcas are ocean-going apex predators, literally the top of the marine food chain. They travel in family pods and can hunt fish, seals, and even other whales. In the Arctic, hungry orcas have been known to herd belugas or narwhals into pockets of open water and pick them off. In short, in the Arctic, the food web is led by polar bears on the ice and orcas in the sea, with walruses, seals, and smaller whales filling in the middle. It's a tough neighborhood, perfectly balanced for the native species that evolved here. First contact. Now let's play nature's mad scientist and drop a few leopard seals into the Arctic ice. Perhaps we place one on the ice edge off northern Canada or Greenland. Our new leopard seal dives into the frigid water. It's still just as big and fast as ever, but now the scenery is different. There are no penguins anywhere, only Arctic seal species and fish. The water holds some comforts. There are plenty of fish, for example, an abundance of small fish like Arctic cod, which form a key part of the Arctic food chain. Even tiny plankton grazers here could feed a filter feeder, and leopard seals have those sieve-like teeth to strain krill. The real question is seals. In Antarctica, it had crab-eater seals and fur seal pups to eat. But in the Arctic, the closest equivalents are ringed and bearded seals. A new leopard seal might try hunting ringed seal pups or even adult ringed seals in open water. It might also target bearded seals. Though those are bigger, the leopard is no lightweight. The leopard has never met these exact species, but a hungry predator has a good chance to learn quickly. Native Arctic seals would be alarmed, though. Imagine a ringed seal peeking out of its ice hole and seeing this strange spotted intruder eyeing it from below. Without penguins as breakfast, the leopard would have to adapt its hunting style. It might wait at an ice edge, similar to polar bear hunting, or it might chase fish schools instead, which would pit it against orcas and walruses for the catch. There could be territory fights. A leopard seal might try to keep a nice part of ice free of other predators. However, one obvious challenge is breeding. Leopard seals give birth in the Antarctic spring, about November, on pack ice. In the Arctic, spring comes 6 months opposite. Our lone leopard seal might not even find a mate, so no pups would be born. But if we're hypothetically dropping in a breeding pair or a small group, they might attempt to breed in the wrong season. It's a big calendar mix-up. Temperature-wise, the Arctic is not much kinder. The water is still near freezing, and the ice can be just as thick. In fact, Antarctica can even be colder on land, so the leopard seal is probably comfortable swimming in Arctic waters. The main difference is that Arctic ice pack is broken and shifting, not a huge problem for a strong swimmer like our leopard seal. Predator meets predator. Now the big players notice something new in the pond. A polar bear might spot the strange leopard seal frolicking near a breathing hole. Polar bears are curious and opportunistic. If a bear wades into the water and clamps into a leopard seal, who would win? We can only speculate, but consider this. A full-grown leopard seal is the size of a small polar bear. If a bear tried to bite it, the seal's thick skin and muscle, and maybe a lunge of its head, would be tough to overcome. It might end badly for both. A bear could end up with a chest full of teeth, and a seal could be bitten or clawed. We don't have real-life records of bear versus leopard seal fights, but they both put up a fight. One thing's for sure, polar bears do eat strange things if they can catch them. Under the ocean surface, things could get icy between predators. Orcas, killer whales, might spy our leopard seal and think, new menu item. Orcas already prey on all sorts of seals, and even leopard seals in Antarctica. They use teamwork and waves to knock seals off ice floes. In Arctic waters, a curious orca pod could easily attack a lone leopard seal. Then there's competition. Our leopard seal is eyeing the same meals as the locals. If it goes after ringed seals or Arctic cod, polar bears and other seals might find less food. Orcas might see another mouth in the water eating fish or krill that they count on. Imagine polar bears getting grumpy when fish runs seem smaller, or Arctic seals feeling the pressure of one more hunter. Could they adapt long term? If our leopard seals survived first contact, could they become permanent Arctic residents? Physically, they might manage. Leopard seals are built for cold water, and Arctic waters, while a bit warmer in some spots, are still below freezing. They already see months of winter darkness in Antarctica, and the Arctic has the same polar night phenomenon in its winter, so the day-night cycle wouldn't be totally new to them. In fact, these seals are strong swimmers and can probably migrate under the ice as far as needed. One big hurdle is breeding. Leopard seals give birth on Antarctic ice around November after a long pregnancy. In the Arctic, Spring comes around April. Leopard seals are pretty flexible eaters. A Baylor University study found that while each seal tends to specialize in certain prey, some can switch diets when needed. A few leopard seals could probably survive for a while by eating whatever is available, but thriving long-term is doubtful without a big population and some luck adapting their breeding and hunting. What happens to the ecosystem? Okay, say a small number of leopard seals stick around. What then? Even a few new top predators can shake things up dramatically. First, think of the prey. Leopard seals would hunt Arctic seals and fish. If they eat a lot of ringed or bearded seals, those populations could drop sharply. If similar pressure hit Arctic seals, polar bears would find themselves with fewer snacks. Polar bears might then have to hunt more walrus calves or scavenge whale carcasses, stretching the food web. Arctic cod and other fish might also take a hit. Those small fish are eaten by ringed seals and belugas. If a new predator gobbles a chunk of the cod too, it could ripple up the food chain. Now consider the native predators. Polar bears could become hungrier and start taking riskier shots at walrus or even human settlements. Orcas might find themselves competing with leopard seals for larger prey. In a worst-case scenario, if leopard seals manage to reproduce and grow in number, they could displace some Arctic seals from their favorite spots. A subtle shift like this can cause a catastrophic cascade. Why it shouldn't happen. Put simply, Arctic ecosystems aren't ready for this. There's no upside to adding a big meat eater. The risk of collapse is too high, and once it starts, you can't reverse evolution overnight. Real biologists would cringe at the idea. Even ecology class teaches that invasive predators can trigger deadly cascades. We've learned from nature that good intentions don't count. Past attempts to control nature have almost always backfired spectacularly. The Arctic, fragile and precious, is not a laboratory for playing God. As one conservationist put it, we have a unique opportunity not to repeat others' mistakes. Introducing a leopard seal would be opening Pandora's box in a frozen kingdom. The Arctic has its own rhythm, one set by countless generations of adaptation. It's the result of millennia of isolation and balance. Sneaking an Antarctic apex predator into this dance might seem small, just one or two animals. But nature doesn't think small. Even a single new predator can throw everything out of sync. In this hypothetical tale, introducing a leopard seal to the north may sound adventurous, but in reality, it would be a gamble with nature's harmony. What if jaguars were introduced into the African savannah? The world is filled with big cats, but they're all so different from one another. We often lump them all together, but they have vast differences from one species to another. One difference, where they live. You might be thinking that taking any one species of big cat and plopping it down where other big cats live would be an easy move. But not so fast. It's not a simple move. And we're going to prove it as we answer this question. What if jaguars were introduced into the African savannah? Most importantly, will they be able to handle the move, or will they suffer? And if not them, then who suffers? Big cat locations. First, we need to learn all about where the big cats live, and specifically where the jaguar lives. Of all the cat species in the world, 7 of them qualify as big cats. Tigers, lions, leopards, snow leopards, cheetahs, cougars, and of course the jaguars. Now we're asking the question, what happens if jaguars were introduced to the African savannah? But where are we moving them from? Well, jaguars live in the Americas, predominantly in South America, but there are populations throughout Central America as well. In the past, they had been found in the southern portions of the US, but that is extremely rare nowadays. They prefer dense forests like deciduous forests, cloud forests, and tropical rainforests like the Amazon. They will at times be found in wetlands and dry grasslands as well. Jaguars prefer the trees and water be near them at all times. So we're going to prepare to move jaguars to an African savannah. But what big cats live in Africa already? Well, tigers and snow leopards are only found in Asia, so we won't have to worry about them. And cougars are only in the Americas, not them either. But the other three big cats, lions, leopards, and cheetahs, they are littered all throughout Africa. So if we're moving jaguars to Africa, those are the big cats they'll be seeing there. But we still need to learn more about what makes the jaguar tick. All about jaguars. We mentioned that jaguars live in the Americas. Well, they're also the largest cat in all of the Americas. Bigger than any cougars or any lynxes or any other feline you'll see in the Americas. They're also the third largest cat in the entire world. They're only smaller than tigers and lions. They stand around 31 inches tall at the shoulder, about 2.5 feet. And their length and weight varies depending on their region. Typically, the farther south you go, the larger they get. On average, they will be about 5 to 6 feet long. If we're talking about jaguars farther north, near the Pacific coast in Mexico, for instance, they might weigh around 110 pounds. But when you move south, say to Venezuela and Brazil, the average weight of jaguars tends to be about 210 pounds. There have even been records of certain jaguars weighing over 300 pounds. Since the population of jaguars are higher in South America, it's fair to go off of what those numbers tend to look like and call our jaguars about 6 feet long and 210 pounds. And it isn't just that they're heavy, they're extremely muscular animals. The jaguar is known as a muscular and powerful big cat. Their legs are shorter and more muscular than other big cats of around the same size. Like felines tend to be, they are ambush predators, meaning they stalk their prey, sneak up on them, and then jump into action. The plan of a jaguar is to leap on their prey in an instant, and their kill tactic is to bite through the skull, causing fatal damage to the brain. They do this because they also have the strongest bite of all the big cats. A jaguar's jaws are incredible, able to exert a bite force of 1500 psi. They can even bite through the shells of turtles and tortoises. The word jaguar comes from the indigenous word jaguar, which means he who kills with one leap. They're not interested in taking all day to get a meal. However, if they need to chase down their prey, they have the speed and agility to do so. Their muscular bodies make them less agile than some other big cats, but they still possess a lot of agility, and they can reach speeds of up to 50 miles per hour. Not many animals are escaping that combination. Speaking of, who is the jaguar choosing to be the unlucky recipients to land on his list of prey? It's good news and bad news if you reside in the same area as a jaguar. The bad news is that the jaguar does not discriminate. There are 85 different species that they have been known to prey on. So if you live near a jaguar, you're probably what he considers prey. The good news is, it isn't only you. There are plenty of other unlucky animals in the area. They prefer medium to large animals like capybaras, peccaries, deer, livestock, and they'll even jump in the water and sneak up on caimans and large snakes. Jaguars are solitary ambush predators, but they do well this way. Whether they're using the trees of the rainforest as cover, or they're sneaking through the rivers, they are excellent hunters on their own. They have no natural predators in the areas they live, so they never have to worry about an enemy or any competition. They're apex predators in their regions, for now, because we're getting ready to ship them off elsewhere. The African savannah. We're going to need to pinpoint where the African savannas are and what exactly they're like. Many people are familiar with the Sahara Desert. That covers a huge portion of northern Africa. The southernmost parts of it reach areas like southern Niger, Chad, and Sudan. Now, just south of that is where African savannas begin to take shape. They run across a large portion of Africa, including countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. Moving south from there, the African savannas merge seamlessly into open woodlands. Further south are the tropical rainforests of Africa, south of that more woodlands, and even farther south, there are more African savannas in countries like Angola, Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. African savannas are an ecosystem that are a mix of woodlands and grasslands. There are trees found throughout African savannas. However, they are widely spaced apart. This is quite different from forests and rainforests, as the canopy does not close above. Plenty of light comes through, but it can vary. Some woodlands have a slight canopy with light coverage above, and then there are grasslands that feature very few trees, and the canopy is virtually non-existent. The vegetation, which is primarily grasses, grows under the ground in these hot and dry conditions. The temperatures stay pretty consistent in African savannas. For instance, in the Serengeti, the highs don't tend to exceed 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the lows don't usually drop below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The African savannas are sandwiched between the rainforests and the deserts, so they are transitional types of climates, but they aren't extremely dry as many believe. They do have a fair bit of humidity throughout the year, ranging between 70 to 80% humidity much of the time. So who lives in the African savannas already? You will find a ton of different animals there. There are zebras, elephants, giraffes, buffalo, aardvarks, wildebeest, gazelles, impalas, hippos, rhinos, warthogs, ostriches, tortoises, and meerkats. But let's not forget, this ecosystem has its predators too. There are African wild dogs, spotted hyenas, and 3 different big cats: cheetahs, leopards, and lions. The animals considered as prey know which predator animals that they have to watch out for. They know how many different kinds of predators there are, and the smart ones know all of their different hunting styles. They know what to avoid. But we're about to make it a lot harder on everyone, because we are going to take our Jaguar from the Americas, we're going to airlift him and ship him across the Atlantic Ocean and drop him right in the African savanna. What is that going to mean for him? And what is that going to mean for all the other animals that are already there? The drop-off. It's finally time. We've dropped our Jaguar off in the African savanna. So what will he do first? Likely he will first scope out his brand new environment. The African savanna is quite different from the forests and rainforests he's used to. The rainforests are now a little too far for the Jaguar to get to. However, if he is lucky, he may be fairly close to the open woodlands of Africa. For now, he is in a savanna. There isn't much of a canopy above him, and though there are a lot of trees, there is much distance between them. Jaguars are typically used to a lot of trees being available, so this is drastically different, but he will just have to make do. As the Jaguar looks for a new area to call home, he will be scoping out the landscape and all the inhabitants of it. He knows he will need to find shelter, but also he will need to find food. He'll see elephants and rhinos and hippos and giraffes, and he absolutely is not used to seeing animals this big back home, so he will be careful and avoid them. There will be buffalo, however, those are pretty big too. He might circle back if there aren't viable options for prey, but he'd prefer not to have to take down something that big and with horns like that. Then our Jaguar will start to find zebras, wildebeest, gazelles, impalas. Those are very similar to the deer he used to hunt back home. If he studies their movements and patterns, those will be excellent options for food. He'll find tortoises and aardvarks, just like back home. He already knows how to handle them. Luckily for the Jaguar, he isn't picky. We mentioned the 85 different species that Jaguars will eat. It helps not being picky when you travel to a new continent. You'll do just fine with food options. Hunting will be more difficult. Jaguars are used to using trees and the rivers as cover. There are rivers here, so if he can find one, that will be helpful. The trees are more spaced apart here, so he won't be able to use them in the same way. But he can use the shrubs and tall grasses to hide himself. In fact, he may be able to pick up some tips from his fellow competitors that he will lay eyes on next. The cheetahs, the leopards, and the lions. Jaguars are used to being the biggest cat around. Now there are cheetahs and leopards, which are smaller, close enough in size. But there are also lions, much bigger. A couple 100 pounds and a few feet bigger. The Jaguar will have to realize immediately he is not top dog. And oh yeah, there are dogs here too. African wild dogs and hyenas as well. He has far more fellow predators to compete with. This can be a problem. And the biggest problem of all, it's those lions. Traveling in a pride. So many of them, and they're all bigger than him. He is no longer the apex predator. In addition to adapting his hunting style, he's also going to have to be on the lookout for the other predators. Other predators with similar hunting styles as him, and targeting the same prey that he is. The lions are bigger and stronger, so he will be outmatched. The cheetahs are far faster and might swoop in and steal his meals. But the jaguar knows he has his own advantages. He's going to have to make do. Life will be more difficult, but a jaguar can manage in the African savannah. However, this still isn't his preferred climate. He'd be much happier in the woodlands and rainforests, but they're a trek. It would be probable that a jaguar would seek out those different environments and try living there instead, because the change in environment from the savannah and all the new competition wouldn't be easy for the jaguar, and all the other animals would be begging him to do the same. Imagine being a gazelle or an impala. You already had to worry about hyenas and lions and leopards and cheetahs. Now there is another big cat. One with incredibly strong jaws, and it's another quick one too. It runs just about as fast as them. Life would be extremely difficult on the prey animals, having a new predator introduced to their environment. Depending on how many jaguars we moved over, their numbers may even begin to deplete. But fortunately for them, our jaguar wouldn't want to stick around too long. He'd tough it out as long as he could, but as soon as he got directions to the nearest rainforest, he'd be making his way there. At least he'd only have the leopards to compete with. Then again, he'd have gorillas he'd have to watch out for. No matter which way you cut it, a jaguar could survive in Africa, but it would not be easy. What if crocodiles were introduced into the Amazonian rainforest? The Amazonian rainforest is roughly 2.58 million square miles. That's how big it is. The Amazon is home to over 40,000 plant species and over 3 million animal species. Every plant and every animal that is there is supposed to be there. They all serve a purpose. It is a delicate balance. Well, we want to shake that all up, turn the Amazon upside down. We want to insert crocodiles into the Amazonian rainforest. And if we did that, what would happen? How would the Amazon react? And more importantly, how would the crocodile react? Deep in the Amazon. Let's head deep into the Amazon before we do anything else, because we have two components. We have a new setting, and we have a new animal. Let's set the stage first and scope out the setting. We need to know what it looks like inside the Amazonian rainforest so we can get a sense of what we're all getting into here. The Amazon is not only the world's largest rainforest, it is also more than 3 times as large as the Congo Basin, which is the world's second largest rainforest. There is just no comparison. It is beyond massive. As we mentioned, over 3 million animal species inhabit the Amazonian rainforest. There's more than 1,300 bird species, more than 400 mammals, more than 400 amphibians, and more than 300 reptiles. That's because the Amazon also has a lot of bugs, and plenty of them carry nasty viruses that you wouldn't want any part of. As beautiful as the Amazon is, it is also a deadly place. The Amazon spans throughout parts of Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Bolivia, Ecuador, and several other South American countries. The Amazon River runs right through the rainforest and hosts so many fish and other animals that find fish tasty. The river itself is a host to many species. The Amazon has 2 seasons essentially, the wet season and the dry season. The wet season is usually around 78 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius, along with relative humidity being about 88%. And in the dry season, it's on average 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, along with a relative humidity of about 77%. So there isn't necessarily a ton of variance in temperature and humidity. It's always warm and it's always humid. All the animals that live in the Amazon are used to this climate and they're used to their surroundings. This may seem strange to us, these constant humid temperatures, but this is normal for a resident of the Amazon. Now, what if we take an animal that is not a resident of the Amazon? pack up his boxes, get him a moving truck, and ship him off to that big rainforest in South America. The animal we're talking about, if it isn't clear, is the crocodile. Tell the croc to get his stuff ready. He's about to do a big move. Crocodile habitats. Hold on a second, we were ready to up and move the crocodile to the Amazon, but we don't even know where to go get him from. We should probably find out where the crocodile resides first. We need to figure out what his location is. Now, we're going to have a lot of options, because truth be told, crocodiles seem to live everywhere. They are found almost everywhere besides the Amazon, it seems. In fact, of the 7 continents in the world, crocodiles are found in all but 2. The only continents they're not found in are Europe and Antarctica. You can find crocodiles in many parts of Southern Asia and in parts of Australia, not to mention all the island nations located in between the two. Crocodiles are littered throughout the African continent, and you can also find them in southern North America and northern South America. In fact, the areas of South America that they reside are just north of the Amazon. So they aren't that far from the Amazon currently. Then again, entering into the Amazonian rainforest is a whole different beast. But when you look at the range of locations that crocodiles live, you'll notice a theme. If you look at all these places on a map, they're all located within a wide stripe right in the center of the globe, hovering right around the equator. They like to live near rivers, lakes, and wetlands, preferring fresh water much of the time, but they can also be found in brackish water and saltwater environments. That is an interesting bit of information about the crocodile. Though it has a strict requirement, must stay near water, it stays flexible with what type of water in many cases. So crocodiles like the water, and they look like they like the heat. That's the perfect habitat for a crocodile, something that provides them with constant heat when they want it, but has water on hand nearby. Why exactly is that? Crocodile details. We'll tell you why that is, because we didn't need to just explore where the crocodile lives, we needed to explore the crocodile itself. We need to explore the makeup of the crocodile so we know how he's going to react when he and all his friends get transported to the Amazonian rainforest. And the first thing we'll talk about is the fact that the crocodile is a reptile. You may say, duh, but it's an extremely important factor because reptiles have very specific needs when it comes to their environment. Reptiles are cold-blooded. This means, unlike warm-blooded animals like humans, they cannot maintain a constant body temperature. The body temperature of a cold-blooded crocodile fluctuates as the weather fluctuates. Cold-blooded animals cannot survive in extreme temperatures if they have no ability to regulate their body temperature. In order to regulate the temperature of their body, they need to be exposed to the desired temperature. That is why a crocodile could not exist in the middle of a desert, nor could they exist in a tundra. They need exposure to the sun to warm up when they need to be warm, but they need something to cool them down as well, whether that comes in the form of shade or water. It's a constant procedure for the crocodile. Basking out on rocks in the sun, then dipping into the water, then back to the sun, and so on. So that's how crocodiles keep their body healthy. Now, how do they keep their body fed? Well, if you take one look at a crocodile, you can see it is a hunter. Crocodiles are opportunistic feeders, so they will feed on whatever is available, whenever it is available. This often results in them eating mammals of varying sizes, lizards, frogs, fish, crustaceans, and even insects. Most times a crocodile will use the water to help it stalk its prey. They wait until the perfect moment, and then they strike. Not many animals are escaping that quick twitch snap of a croc's jaws, and once it's got a hold, you can basically call it game over. There are varying types of crocodiles, but if we are talking about the saltwater crocodile, it has a bite force that is more than 3,600 pounds per square inch. That is good enough to be the strongest recorded bite force of any animal on planet Earth. For reference, 3,600 pounds is like the weight of a small car. That's what it would feel like coming down on you as a crocodile bites down. And if we're still talking about the saltwater crocodile, they can grow to be over 20 feet long and weigh up to 2,200 pounds. These are not small guys. They're huge and they're powerful, and they aren't necessarily the fastest animals, but being able to move between 15 and 18 miles per hour, that is no small feat. There's also the American crocodile, which can move even faster, hitting speeds of up to 20 miles per hour. Of course, the American crocodile is a bit smaller, usually between 12 and 15 feet long, and weighing half the saltwater crocodile, about 1,100 pounds. Still, that's a big reptile. So the croc is a big bad boy. Are we ready to move him to the Amazon and see what happens? The big move. So we got a special team of people to airlift a crocodile or two and bring them to the Amazonian rainforest. It wasn't easy, but we got them there. Just in the interest of experimentation, we have a saltwater crocodile and an American crocodile. We didn't put them together, but they're both situated in areas of the Amazon and can explore as they wish. The first thing they need to do is locate a source of water, and luckily, that Amazon River runs right through the rainforest. That's perfect for them. They'll be able to cool down when they wish, and they can use this water to hunt. Now, the Amazon River is fresh water, so this won't pose a problem for the American crocodile. And though you may think the saltwater crocodile will be in trouble, he won't. Salties, as they are sometimes called, have been seen in plenty of freshwater environments, so they're able to adapt. Now, the rest of the rainforest is looking pretty nice for the crocs. They don't want extreme temperatures, and the Amazon stays consistently warm. This Amazon rainforest is looking pretty good for our crocs. They got sun, they got water to cool down and to hunt in. Yes, it's time to hunt. What do we have to eat here? Well, crocodiles are not picky. They have their pick of the tons of fish in the river. All the other small reptiles and amphibians. There are also deer and boars and tapirs that they can attack as they drink from the river. It's like a Vegas buffet for the crocodile. These crocs are probably wondering why they haven't come down here any sooner. Well, because there could be issues. There could be other predators. And, well, there is another crocodile who nearly made it down to the Amazon. Bordering nearby, and sometimes finding his way into the Amazon, is the Orinoco. However, these crocs are critically endangered and seldom seen right in the Amazon. If they are usually 22 feet long and 1,000 pounds. So, our American croc better watch out. That thing weighs about the same, but is much bigger in length. Our Salty should be fine. He weighs twice as much and would dominate him. Now, there are black caimans in the Amazon, also about 20 feet long and 1,000 pounds. Once again, the American should be wary. The Salty is still the top dog here. In fact, the Salty is starting to look like he might be the apex predator. There is the Jaguar to watch out for, the apex predator of all mammals in the Amazon. That is a powerful and fast animal that could sneak up and pounce on our croc. But once again, the croc has a massive weight advantage. The American crocodile has a lot to get used to, multiple new predators to compete with, but he would make it. The Salty is walking around and feeling really good about this new place. Constant warm temperatures, the biggest river in the world, plenty of food to eat, and he gets to be top dog, more or less. Maybe the Salty should move down here permanently, get all of his friends and family to join him. However, there is one important thing to note. Yes, the crocodile himself would thrive down in the Amazon, but we shouldn't go moving the whole species down here. The species may not continue on, because those constant temperatures could pose a problem. You see, the Amazon River stays a steady 84 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. And there's one more interesting tidbit about the crocodile. They mate, and then they lay their eggs in the water. So, if we brought males and females down here, after they mated, they'd lay eggs in the Amazon River. Now, crocodile eggs are heavily influenced by the temperature of the water. It influences the sex of the baby. At 86 degrees and below, the hatchlings tend to always come out female, and 90 degrees and up, the hatchlings tend to always come out male. The in-between temperatures are where you get a little of both. But if those Amazon River temperatures don't go above 86, we may be looking at crocodiles giving birth to only females, meaning there might be no males being produced. So yes, our American crocodile and our saltwater crocodile could make it in the Amazon, and our salty would check every other animal that views itself as an apex predator. They'd all have to check their egos at the door, but let's not move all the crocs down here. That may not be a wise move.